Yours.
Okay, good afternoon, Kyoto and everywhere else. Um, this session is about creating deep value and coming from the point of view of negotiation skills and background. The three of us have been teaching and consulting and negotiating for some years, and we've interacted quite a lot over the past 10, 15 years. We will first introduce ourselves and then go into some prepared questions that we have to discuss, and we will take questions from the floor. So first, self-introduction. Dragos, please go ahead. Dragos Vasilescu.
All right. Good afternoon from my side as well. I am Dragos. You can just call me Dragos. I am an advisor, lecturer, and trainer, mostly seated in the Austrian region, but also working internationally. I've been in the field of negotiation for almost 15 years now. Actively trying to work on the new ways on how to improve the training in this field, but also observing and conducting negotiations. And I'm currently a guest lecturer at several universities in several PhD programs, postgraduate, and also other academic functions. But let's go with that. And I'm very excited to be here and show you my interpretation of what I believe deep value negotiation is. Now, I'm not sure, Will, should I go into the presentation or after the
Yes,
introduction?
please do. Yes.
Oh, okay. So I should do that. All right, good. So in that case, let me share my screen. All right, is this visible?
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Go ahead.
All right, great, fantastic. So, um, what I want to talk about is how the deep value impacts negotiations, and the big picture is something that a lot of times is being overlooked. And because this, I like to go more into practical examples, and it's also a bit easier to see a practical example. I would like to compare deep value with something that most of us at least heard of, and that is Linux. And Linux is a sort of operating system that is open source. It has a global development. Everyone in the world could contribute to it. It is very hard to reproduce the value that Linux brings to the world. Why? Because it is a very large ecosystem. It has a large emphasis on security and flexibility, and because of this, it has an extreme global impact. So something over 90% of the world backbone's infrastructure relies on Linux. More than 70% of the smartphone market in the world is based on Linux. And many critical infrastructure systems have some variants of Linux, and this includes financial systems, governmental systems, defense systems, aviation and space, and so on and so forth. Linux is basically embedded in our world, and even if we see it or not. What I want to show with this example is, well, this is an example of deep value that we don't necessarily see on the surface most of the times. And the question that I would like to answer in this few minutes that I have right down the beginning of the panel is, how do we increase the prevalence of such deep value endeavors in our own lives? In order to respond to this question, I would like to go a bit further behind the scenes and look at the human behaviors, the way we make decisions. And we are mostly driven by our own egos and emotions. And for the sake of, well, simplicity, I'm only going to mention a few of these emotions. First, curiosity, or the willingness to explore and try unknown paths. And this is what leads humans in general to try new things and discover and innovate and basically improve, hopefully, their futures. At the same time, the main opponent to this would be probably fear of the unknown, of losing control, but also of all the things that we don't know that could happen. Of course, I would also have to mention this desire of self-balance and self-care, or looking out for oneself and trying to set a reasonable expectation of life standards. These emotions and this ego of ours are sometimes codified in our own language into sayings such as, and I'm pretty sure you all heard of this, just because you can doesn't mean you should. The, this saying itself, it kind of represents all these emotions. On one side, it's curiosity. Yes, you can do things, but at the same time, you shouldn't really do things that you don't know. Why? Because, well, the fear of unknown perhaps is one of them. And actually, I need to also bring to the equation something else, which is also quite prevalent, and it's a well-known philosophical principle of whatever is being created is not necessarily inherently good or evil. It is the moral responsibility of the users to use whatever is created appropriately. So the intentions do matter to whatever is being created. So with what you've seen here, at least on this slide, you might think, well, is it really that important? Are we not just better off without searching for deep value in our activities? Why should we? Considering it's hard, it's difficult, we have fear of the unknown and so on. And actually, the big picture shows that it's not possible to do that. Why? Because one of the main traits that led to the rapid expansion of the human civilization, one of them is passing down information. This initially was through science and then through language, later through well-written texts and so on. And I could use this passing down information in also in a different way. How? I would rephrase it a bit into working together across time and space. Not that you don't know, you no longer needed to be in the same place. You could be in different parts of the world across different types of generations and still be able to work together with other people. This, and of course, based on some, let's say, basic requirements, which are working together in non-malicious ways and for the purpose of helping others, but also themselves, led to the expansion of the human civilization. So in reality, we are not better off without searching for deep value. And the creation of deep value over the course of generations is part of the reasons why we created the civilization we have today. With that, I want to lead us to the core of this, which is finding deep value in conflicts. So I don't want to wait for generations, and no one should wait for generations to create value. Value can be created everywhere. But if you look for it, you can create deep value. How do you create deep value? Well, by working together. There's a few things to the thought process here. First off, a basic axiom that significant personal achievements can only be obtained with the help of others. We are not secluded, we're not separate from the world, we are part of the world. Secondly, if you could solve a conflict by yourself without the help of others, you would. And this goes back to this emotion of desire of self-balance and care. Third, if the resolution to a conflict, whatever form of the resolution might have, is perceived to be one-sided, leaving some parties unsatisfied, those affected parties will continue to search for solutions. They will not be happy. And such resolutions, well, do not create enough value in the long run. And last but not least, everyone primarily will care about themselves. Why would they want to help others if their own needs are not met? Those thought processes lead still to the same answer, working together. So working together is not some sort of a global endeavor and it's diffused in the way it works. It should be an activity that we should seek, especially in conflictual situations. Why? Because this is the only way to create longer lasting effects and deeper value. Of course, there's barriers to this. Barriers could be lack of time, lack of energy, egos of the people involved, emotions and concerns about ethics and morality, aims going back to the intentions of the people. Fundamental understanding of why working together is important, and a lot of people do have an, let's say, lack of training and understanding what is possible. But without or with these barriers and without overcoming them, and without curiosity and a genuine desire to help others, negotiations tend to be really lost in the anonymity of details. People will no longer see the big picture, they only look at details. And if these barriers are not overcome to work together, then unfortunately, there will be no next Linux. And as a conclusion, and basically what you should take away from what I am trying to say in these words, is that long lasting, sustainable, deep, complex value can only be unlocked by working together and helping others and yourself at the same time. Of course, everyone should be on this mission to try to help empower and educate others and try to use this mindset when working with other people. Of course, we should also actively try to reduce the barriers to unlock these values and the concept of this value, and be as moral and ethical as possible, especially in situations that lead to conflicts and negotiations. And with this, I really hope to everyone listening here to be able to be part of the next Linux that you're building in the world. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Dragos. Peter, over to you.
Yes, thank you very much. And thank you for your talk, Dragos. We didn't coordinate, but in the end, I take a little different route, but come to almost to the same conclusion like you. And I think this really this works well together our two presentations. So my name is Peter Kesting. I am associate professor at Aarhus University. Aarhus is a city in Denmark, second largest city in Denmark. And I'm working also in the negotiation area for more than 20 years. And I'm founder of the TNC, now I'm, which was also hosted in Kyoto by Will Baber, the negotiation challenge. Sorry, it's a student contest for negotiation. So that's, if you like, my main area. But I'm also very interested in philosophy of action. And I think this intersection between negotiation and philosophy of action is very interesting. So let me share my presentation. I just have to enlarge it. Oh, okay. Can you see it?
Yes, we've got it. That's the
Okay.
presentation. Good.
Super. I wanted to guide you into a world which is a little different, and this is the distinction between the grand world and small worlds. I have symbolized by the landscape, which never ends. There's always something behind, and the small world is this compartment which has clear borders for reasoning, and this distinction was actually developed by Leonard Savage in 1954. I think one of the most interesting philosophers, or he is actually coming from statistics of the 20th century. And this is one of the most interesting thoughts, which is not so popular, but I think it's very, very important. So I want to use this opportunity to make you a little bit familiar with that. So let's start with rationality. Why are we rational? Do we use rationality? It's the capacity or principle of aligning thought and action with reason. So it's all about reason. And rationality, rational decision making, always has the same structure. We have some target, utility, profit, or whatever we want to maximize. Then we have a set of alternatives. So we look at specific alternatives and we can compare these alternatives. And rational decision making means that we find the best alternative regarding to our preferences, serving our purpose. That's rational reasoning. Savage goes further and says, okay, but if we want to be really rational, we cannot isolate. We have to combine everything because everything is linked to everything. What I decide today has an impact for tomorrow. And when I'm making a decision today, I cannot make different decisions. So what he says is, making an extreme idealization, a person has only one decision to make in his whole lifetime. He must, namely, decide how to live, and this might, in principle, do once and for all. So this is full rationality, and I don't have to show you that this doesn't work. So what people are doing is they are making decisions in small words. He calls it small words. So we are not deciding about how to have a good life or how to have a sustainable world, but how to maximize my profit. Or even, what is the best way to internationalize my production of cars, for instance. So how do I go on a specific market? How do I a specific thing? And this is very important because this means when we are deciding within the small world, it means that we are not deciding about anything outside. So we are looking at this compartment and only at this compartment. And here we are rational, but we do not look outside. And I think this is the first very important takeaway I want to give to you, that rationality is not very rational. It's rational within the small compartment. Here we can make the best decision. We can choose the best alternative, but we do not know all alternatives. We cannot look outside. Outside it's dark. So there is a lot of research about bounds of rationality. This is about how we make decisions, but not what decision we make. There is not much research about this. And now let's come to the grand world. This is something when I prepared for this, but I'm dealing with this topic for quite a couple of years. I found that there is no systematic research about how do we navigate the grand world. There's a lot of research, tons of research about how to act in small worlds, how to make decisions, how emotions guide us, but almost nothing about the grand world. Well, we have something about, scenario planning. We have something about alertness. So alertness means that something comes to us and then we react to it. But is there, what is the grand vision? What is the super plan behind this? There's no, how can we be rational in the grand world? What does rationality mean in the grand world? So this is very much unresearched or under-researched. And one interesting aspect is when you look, deeper, then you find our navigation in the grand world is very much driven by routine. We are doing things because we are doing things. And this is how you can explain a lot of, not far, for narrow, very narrow view that we are focusing on the small words and do not really understand and control the grand world. And my question, which I would also love to discuss with you, is how much are small worlds, is small word thinking limiting us? And here I see the connection to what Drago said, because we have talk to each other. We have to collaborate. So definitely small worlds are limiting. So when I'm CEO of a company, then I try to maximize my profit. I try to serve my shareholders, and there is not so much space to look to everything because my capacities are restricted. So what is the way forward? I think ethical norms are very important because short-sighted thinking is very much limiting us for seeing consequences. When I look, for instance, to Donald Trump, I think a lot of what he's doing is because of his focus. He's trying to care to bring down the American trade deficit. So he's very much focusing on different things. And I think there are problems to see the further consequences. In particular, there is one paper that we wrote where we introduce a concept which is called unethical myopia, that I try to seek my own advantage and do not see the long-term negative consequences. So I think ethics is very important and the critical discourse. And this is exactly what Dragos said. So we have to talk to each other, we have to help each other. Yes, that's what I wanted to say. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. I will quickly self-introduce myself and the viewpoint that I'm taking to this project and questions, and then we will go to our group conversation. Sorry, just a moment while I'm searching for the correct screen to share. Oh, there it is. Okay, so I'm coming to this question of sustainability and deep value, looking at voiceless parties. And voiceless parties are very much, they exist around us in different places, but I'm going to focus on those in the natural world. And that is a location of deep value. And this is also about connecting the negotiator, the parties, and their small worlds into a larger world. So this, I'm relying in part on the idea from Moses of sustainability pillars. So on the right-hand side of the screen, you see the financial and economic, and that's what we know as business people. And that's the sort of unavoidable reality that we have to deal with. However, we are embedded in these two much larger areas, the environment and the society around us. And these are the connecting points to the larger world that we also have to consider. So not all parties are able to speak. They may be humans who are marginalized or repressed, or they may be people who don't yet exist, meaning future generations. Maybe we should also, or we often do, in fact, consider previous generations who no longer exist, and we consider natural environments and habitats as well. So against these three pillars of sustainability, there are some of these five counterfactors that Moses identifies. So in order to have good sustainability or some kind of process that we can understand and share, we need to consider how we deliver value and results to stakeholders, how markets and our standard economic structures exclude people, and how different ideas of sustainability work, and these trade-offs, which are very much about small world thinking and lack of systemic inclusion. So there's a process issue that has to be considered. So voiceless parties need to have they need systemic consideration. So that means the investigation and deep understanding of what their interests are. And they do not benefit so much from ad hoc, convenient, or last minute kind of thinking. So in order to deeply include a group of people or an ecosystem, we have to look methodically. And some of those groups or entities will need highly skilled advocates who have the correct matching interests and the appropriate power. So one question here is whether they should or have to gain personhood in order to be properly represented. So here's an example. Here are a couple examples of natural ecosystems that have achieved personhood or that have been granted personhood by society. So this is a very powerful step to integrate those large-scale, holistic places and organizations into the thinking and framework of negotiation. So this is a national park in New Zealand. And this is the first example of this in the modern times that I can find, where the park, which is large enough to include villages and inhabitants and so on, has a legal standing. The people who live there, the Maori people, insisted on certain kind of legal status. So this might be different from country to country, jurisdiction to jurisdiction regarding how the solution is crafted. But within their legal system, they insisted on the kind of legal status that suited them for that park and its ecosystem. Here's another example, a river in Colombia, another river in Quebec more recently. And so to briefly, very quickly explain how this works, a guardian group of people can be a larger community or a board, for example, is able to understand the needs and interests of the land, the ecosystem, the animals, and the human traditions and human communities that are in and around it. So it's an attempt to be as holistic as possible. So that group is responsible to the larger community, however it's structured. It could be elders, it could be a legal board or something like that. And the entity that they represent has rights similar to how a citizen has rights. So they have rights that cannot be taken away. They have interests that have to be respected and so on. So this, as I say, can be a variety of different things. One example where the whole community is self-representing is with the Minto people in Alaska, where they have pushed to situate themselves within the legal system that came from outside, that was imposed by the United States. So here's some practical issues that I like to point out is that humans with enough money and power and experience can have what they need. So they have the ability to, they have the power, they have a voice, they can move if they need to, they can run away, they can fight if they need to, and they have, they are their own principles, their own agent. So this is radically different when we're talking about humans with less power, fewer resources, and when we're talking about non-living entities. So people who are not born, or people who have passed away, and natural resources, natural features. So we as negotiators need to integrate those things. I very much agree with Peter and Dragos about this. And we need to balance the self-interest of the parties that are represented in any given negotiation with the connection to the deeper value around. So the deep value of nature is undeniable and has to be protected despite its deep resilience. It is possible for humans to, in fact, ultimately destroy the oceans, for example, and this would have uh, this would have um, impact on humans that probably could not be survived. So I will. That's the end of my self-introduction, except that I didn't self-introduce myself. So I teach at Kyoto University in the business program at the Graduate School of Management. And my main interest is uh, negotiation, and my secondary interests are around business innovation. And I think it's time for us to go to the questions that we are going to start our conversation with. So, our first question then is what kind of practices and processes should we follow to maximize long term value creation? Now, that long term value creation could be deep value, universal value, or value within the specific topic of a negotiation or a deal in a smaller world. So I'll open those comments to Peter and Dragos. If either of you would like to jump in.
You like to start, Dragos, or?
I
Okay,
can start. No problem.
Please do.
So what I also said earlier holds water in this case as well, because um, most of the times one of the best practices that I know is during conflictual situations to reflect on what you're doing and what is the big picture. And this is exactly why are you doing the things you're doing, or why are you there? Because most people try to or tend to focus very much on details, and this takes away. It's what Peter mentioned, this myopia of not seeing the big picture, not seeing the forest from the trees, right? And by having or by self-reflecting, you might understand a bit more about what what does it mean to have long-term value in anything that you do, especially conflicts.
Mhm.
Peter?
Okay, so a self-reflection component is necessary for negotiation parties, and that speaks to intentionality that we spoke about earlier. Peter, go ahead.
Yes, I see in this regard, I see a large tension between what I call civilization and non-civilized behavior. So I think what we need is a fair, open discourse, and not driven by instincts or by power, or these atavistic elements in human behavior. So I think these are the two most important parts that, I mean, to resolve problems. I think negotiation is a very good way, because negotiation means that people from different perspectives present their view and try. I mean, this is the definition of negotiation: back and forth communication designed to reach an agreement, by Fisher Patton. But they also say negotiation is problem solving. But and here, I think this is a way to transcend small worlds, because small worlds are always individual. I focus on doing this, but you are focusing on a different thing. And one way here is, I mean, we have all that, um, is um, is bringing in. I mean, that there are people representing these interests of those that you showed, Will, that are not sitting at the table. Now, I saw one comment which I found very interesting. Let me just open it.
Yes, I see. Go ahead and react to that.
Yeah, I just need to find it again. Chat. It's running away. Sorry. Um, Negotiation in today's Trump world. Today, trust in long-term cooperation is giving away for short-term deals. What does this mean for certain sustainability? This is exactly the other way, the other world. So this is why I think Trump is so dangerous because he's eroding exactly that. He is eroding, he's ignoring ethical standards, closing the discourse, and advancing exactly that, going away from trust and cooperation to self-interest, short-term self-interest. So I think this is exactly the struggle, and this is exactly and yeah, and ethics. Ethics is very important at this point.
Thank you very much, Peter. So in among the best practices that we should follow is, I believe, is to put this search for and reminder about looking into deep value, long-term value into the negotiation process. So in my negotiation classes, in my very first session in the course, I come to the issue of creating new value in a deal. So the new value can be economic or social or anything, the short term, long term. But it is a process where the negotiators look at the information that they have and their alternatives and their possible points to coordinate, and they think about actively, how can we build this up? How can we increase this? And this is a time where they can start to make strategic moves or plan tactical moves. So I also like to ask my students, after introducing that and practicing that kind of thing, I like to ask them, where should you start to think about uh, larger value issues or increasing value? At the very beginning, during strategic early planning or deal design, or when you're talking to the other parties, et cetera, et cetera. And my ideal answer to that is always, but very much front end loaded in the earliest part of the research, and again in the deal design, before you really get down to talking, and you'll find new information when you talk. So students often shy away from handling that in the earliest time. But I like to say this is when you have the opportunity to find new allies if you need them, align with your current allies, and really expand the conversation.
Um,
Let's move to our second question then.
But
Uh,
maybe just to add,
Go
I
ahead. Yeah.
completely agree. I completely agree that education is very important here. I mean, civilization is, based on education and bringing in these topics. I must be honest. I was teaching the Harvard method, focus on interest, not positions. But then Brian Genson actually came up with this. Yeah, but whose interests? Is it only those sitting at the table, or what about the others? So I think this is a very important aspect you brought up, Will, that education is very important here. Dragos, you also wanted to?
yes, I also want to interject because also there's a question regarding value and deep value, and more importantly, something that perhaps I need to explain in different words. Um, when people will always, of course, look at their own interests first, which is absolutely okay. This is not necessarily a problem. The thing is, most people do not realize that you don't need to look at yourself, at your own accomplishment, whatever you want to gain, from a if I get something, the other people lose everything. And this is something that most people don't understand. If you
Mhm.
work with this premise, then basically the other parties, whoever you're going to be dealing with, will go away feeling unhappy, unsatisfied.
Mhm.
They will create problems for yourself later on. So then you have to deal with them again. You're expending a lot of energy solving something or trying to solve something in the long run that could be solved better by thinking about the other people as well. And this is what when I seen this in practice in a lot of companies that I have advised that had exactly this problem, they're looking to spend as little energy as possible, create value fast now on the spot, and then have to deal with the same problem again in the future because they didn't take enough time to really understand what parties, all the actors, all the stakeholders involved are wanting to accomplish, and not trying to create deep value. And this is what for me the difference between value for the sake of creating something quickly now for myself versus deep value where I have value for myself and value for others without necessarily impacting anything about my own interests or positions. And
And I think this
yeah, go ahead.
this is the beauty and the
Yes,
interesting thing that suddenly it's not about I'm very generous, I'm a nice person, but it's my own interests. So
your own
and then
exactly.
suddenly the task is not, convincing people for, making concessions, but it's just convincing people of, okay, that's not a good idea. I mean, what Trump is doing, I think, is harming the US economy. It's not a good idea. It's egoistic, short-term
Yep.
thinking.
Very short
Yep.
term, yes.
Very much agree. And so this is if we have a process where the negotiators think about this and consider it, then we can also inject intentionality into the negotiation and clarify that we have to know what we want and why. Okay, I will move to the next question, and that is that is I'll put it on the screen here. What pitfalls and mistakes and errors that would limit or destroy value can we identify and avoid in negotiations? So, Peter, you're first this time, if you like.
Yes, I think we already touched upon it. It's short-term thinking. This is the biggest mistake. Not listening to the others, not thinking beyond the small world, not entering a discourse, thinking. I think this is very important. This I can outsmart the others. I mean, this is also the. Let us be honest. This is the cliche, the stereotype of negotiation that I'm clever and that I outsmart, the other and get a bigger share. So that's a good negotiator. That's a deal maker, and that's wrong. It's simply wrong. It's not in my interest. So this impulsive winning attitude. I think this is where it starts.
Impulsive
I would
winning. Yes, I call that winning for the sake of winning. And some
Yes.
people are very competitive and they do that. Dragos, go ahead.
Yeah, but that's exactly the point that we were also making earlier. Winning for the sake of winning is actually losing in the long
Yes.
run. It's as simple as that, yeah. It's one of the things that I was thinking about is how most people just react based on the events without considering other options. And this is something that Will said just a few moments ago with when do you start thinking of enlarging the pie or creating new value? When do you do that? If you do this too late in the process, after everything fails, that's not really productive in any way. That's trying to solve or fix problems after they occurred instead of preventing problems from occurring in the first place. So I think one of the biggest pitfalls is this short-sightedness that we are talking about, and the fact that we're not looking towards the grander scheme, the big picture, the grander scheme of things. And here is probably the most limiting factor is that most of the people have dealt with, myself included, sometimes do not see the whole picture. And for the sake of time, I don't even try to find it. But that's damaging. Yes.
Yes. Okay. To that, I will only add that uh, a major pitfall that I see is lack of good planning at the beginning. So,
Mm.
developing a large, big scale, holistic picture of your negotiation issues, the parties, the stakeholders, and their deep interests. One of the simulations that I have loved to use in my own class involves an inheritance, and sometimes the students also satisfy the interests of the deceased person, and that's marvelous. That's how big I want our
Mm.
thinking to be. We have about 12 minutes left, so I'm going to go to the other big question that we've already touched on a bit, the big issue in the room, which is how do we deal with very transactional people? Um, as we've already mentioned, Donald Trump. So there are ways, there are techniques and approaches that negotiators know uh, for handling people like this who are short thinking. But let's talk about them. Who's first?
Okay, maybe I start. So
Sorry, let's take about 5 minutes each. Otherwise, we'll run out of time. Okay.
no problem. There is a very, very nice game which is developed by Harvard University. It's called Win as Much as You Can. And I don't know how much you know this game in the audience.
Yes.
If you don't know, play it. It's fantastic. It's with four persons, and you can play either an X or a Y. And if everybody plays an X, everybody is losing. If everybody is playing a Y, everybody is winning. But if you play an X to outsmart the others that play a Y, then you are winning and the others are losing. The Y players are using. So the cooperative are losing. And the problem is somebody, and this is the question of will, a little bit taken into this game. Somebody is starting playing an X, and they are playing an X, and then we're all losing. Or I have the alternatives. I play a Y, then I'm suffering. I'm giving all my money to the X player, or I'm also playing an X, then we are losing. I would say we have to explain don't play a why, don't let the other exploit you. So in the case of Donald Trump, I would say the world is bigger than America. We always forget this, so we have to find an alliance and play a big X that he understands, and then explain, okay, this is not what we want. We do not want to play X. We want to play Y. So now come back to the table and play Y again. And it's good for all of us. That's what I would say.
Mhm.
Good comment. Go ahead, Dragos.
I'm gonna pretty much piggyback on what Peter said with this because the approach of the transactional person, just like Donald Trump, is pretty much rooted in the short-sightedness. But you can modify this. Obviously, a soft approach would not work. Soft approaches will just such people would just use you, and that's about it. Hard approaches might normally typically fail in negotiations. However, a hard approach that makes people understand that they do not own ultimate power, just to bring them to the table and then switch to collaborative, that would
Yeah.
work. That would work. How would it work? It depends on the context and situations. There's no clear answer to that. But where most people kind of start diverging from this is they start with this hard approach because they need to, and then they just keep going with it. That's not necessarily conducive to a good negotiation. So at some
Yeah.
point, you do need to transition from hard approach because you need to get to the person that is transactional to understand that they do not own everything, And then, because by the way, if you do not, well, if you do not achieve or you do not say what they want to hear, they also lose. So they people that have or that work with on the premise that they're the most powerful will take the hardest, the drop in power. For them, losing power, it was the worst thing that can happen. So basically, for them, this is exactly the problem. However, once they start losing some power, they take it down a notch and they start being more reasonable because they understood, at least for their own sake, that they cannot win that way. And then you can collaborate. I would say this would be my approach.
Thank you. Yeah, so I agree very much with those comments that we cannot let ourselves be exploited and bullied. So as we know from lots of experience on the playground as children, and also unfortunately in the real world in geopolitical politics, if you do not react appropriately, you will be further exploited by the aggressor, right? Um, so in addition to what we've said, I like to point out that it is often possible to craft the kind of agreement that goes in increments, where one party does something and that behavior is rewarded, and then the next behavior progresses and it is rewarded. So milestones are quite normal in large project management. In these kind of agreements, with very transactional, self-focused people and problematic personalities, we have to make those increments very small so that the rewards come quickly to the parties, especially the problematic party, so that they can see, if I do this correctly, I will get another carrot and not get a stick. So those have to be built in and crafted, customized to every given negotiation. Uh, Now, dealing with Trump or people like him is not only um, about aligning their interests and managing them on a small scale and so on, and pushing back. It's also about problem personalities. So as we mentioned earlier, ego is a factor in negotiations often, generally, I suppose. For some characters, it's an extreme factor. And I think in these cases, we have to build in additional mechanisms to soften and not too much inflame, but also not diminish those kind of egos. So we could see this in geopolitically with Trump. Probably we've seen it personally with business partners or what have you. Any comments, Peter or Dragos, in our last minutes about those personalities?
Not exactly those personalities, but there are two more questions in the chat, which I find very interesting.
Okay, if you want to go to one of them quickly, please do.
Yes, how do we ensure that the interests of others who aren't in the room are considered? This, for me, is the big puzzle. I have
Yes.
no answer to that. Of course, we can say, yeah, we have to think about them and so on. I don't know. I think this is something we have to find a way for, and that's one of the keys.
Yeah, thank you. Let me jump in on that. So my feeling about that to the um, questioner, Dr. Mahajan, is that negotiators need to have a process and a code of conduct so that they scan for, identify, and include those kind of parties. And that, I think, yeah, okay, so that's what I see is a necessity to have a process to do that and have the organizations that can do it. So this is very much an issue with the moon, for example, which is a natural body that is on the verge of being exploited and built out. and what kind, it should be an entity represented by an organization that has power given to it by terrestrial governments and organizations so that they can apply carrots and sticks. Dragos, if you have a comment to that.
Very quick, because I would like to go to the other question, but my comment would be, whenever you start preparing for a conflict negotiation in any way, one of the things you should be looking at is what are the stakeholders, the invisible stakeholders, and how will the deals affect them? How do you do that? Stakeholder analysis is one of the simplest ways that I know of. But it's not simple in any way. It is not simple. And always try, before signing any agreement, before agreeing to anything, finally, always try to look at, if that stakeholder would be my boss, how would this deal be seen as? Now, the last question.
Good point of view. I think last sentence, and then we will have to go and return the forum to Dr. Sugai.
Yes.
Go ahead, Dragos. Finish
Okay,
up. Sorry.
cool. Thank you. So the problem is the question, the comment here is, the problem is that you do not see the point of view. He doesn't care about your point of view and doesn't understand how you cannot you cannot negotiate with him. What do you do regarding the earlier comment with transactional leaders? It's quite simple. The way I see things if you can have a deal, if you can solve a conflict without sitting at the table negotiating with anyone, you would do that. But the moment you sit down at the table to negotiate with someone, you need something from them. Otherwise, you cannot accomplish your own goals. So it's very simple. They will not get anything if you do not give them anything. That's it. That's the solution. You hold out, do not give them anything, and they will have to come down from their high horse.
Yeah. And so it's a little bit of matter of power. I mean, if China and Canada and Mexico and Europe unite and play an axe, he will understand. He will
That's
understand.
right. That's right. Okay, here we have to close up our forum, our panel. Thank you very much, Peter and
Thank you.
Dragos. Thank you also, Phillips. We appreciate the opportunity to speak and talk. And thank you, Doina Husso, for your coordinating and management.
Yes, thank you very, very much. I took so many notes while you all were talking, so this was spectacular. And so we will take a 5-minute break and be back with a discussion on circularity. So thank you very much. And we will wrap up after that with our final keynote from Vanina Farber, the Dean of the Executive MBA program at IMD. Okay, so we have 5 minutes again, short break, one big session on circularity, and then a wrap-up keynote. Thank you very much. And thank you, all of you, for a great panel session.
Thank you. And thank you, Will, and thank you, Peter.
Thank you all. Have a good afternoon, evening, and whatever you're doing.
Yes. Bye.
Good. I think there may be.
You mean today?
No.
Well, I'm actually taking this month off because it's so hot. But
Okay.
I've got some cards if maybe.
There's some things to do.